Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the ordinary meeting of Council of the 21st of July 2025. The Mayor is unwell tonight and therefore an apology for this meeting. And in accordance with Council's governance rules, I invite councillors to nominate a chair for the meeting. Could I, Councillor Phelan?
I would like to nominate Councillor Ferrari.
Councillor Ferrari, you satisfied with that?
Yes.
Okay, could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Rebecca Wardlaw. Those in favour? Thank you.
Thank you. We hope that our Mayor has a speedy recovery. Welcome to this meeting of the Pyrenees Shire Council. Councillors will today deliberate and decide on a range of matters relevant to the work of Council in its communities for the welfare of the people of the Pyrenees Shire. As the meeting chair, I give my consent for this ordinary meeting to be streamed live, recorded and published online. Anyone who is invited to read out a question or make a submission will be recorded, and their voice, image and comments will form part of that live stream and recording. The Chair and or the CEO have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed appropriate. That may include where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory or potentially inappropriate to be published. The live stream will stop prior to the closed section of the meeting. Will recommence for the conclusion of the meeting. The public is able to view this live stream via our website at www.pyrenees.vic.gov.au. Should technical issues prevent the continuation of the live stream, the meeting will continue as long as a quorum can be maintained, and where possible, a recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. Where a quorum cannot be maintained, the meeting will be adjourned until the issue is resolved, or the meeting postponed to another time and date in accordance with Council's governance rules. We acknowledge the people past and present of the Wadawurrung, Jarjarwarrung, Eastern Maar, Watchabollock, Jarjawa, Jarli, Wagaya and Juppalgulk nations whose lands and waters the Pyrenees Shire operates on. We pay our respects to their ancestors and elders and recognise and respect their customs, stewardship and continuing connection to country. Apologies, Tanya Keogh, the Mayor. Any councillors or officers got any notice of disclosure of interest? Nothing. Thank you. Item 6, confirmation of the previous minutes. There's a recommendation there that the minutes be confirmed. Can I have someone sign it? Have we got a seconder? All those in favour? Thank you. Item 7, business arising, responses to questions taken on notice at the previous ordinary council meeting on the 19th of May 2025. There was a question provided by Mr. Trevor Davey, who was present again in the gallery. Thank you, Trevor. That response was there. I think, have you read that, Trevor? Anyway, we can discuss it at a later stage, but response has been provided. Public participation. Members of the community encouraged to participate in public ordinary council meetings by asking questions or presenting a submission. This can be done by attending in person or by submitting in writing prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting, online through Council's website, by mail or hand delivered. If a question or submission is submitted in writing, this will be read by the Chair during public participation, stating the person's name and township. Question time will be held first, followed by public submissions. 30 minutes is allowed for the total period of public participation. Time extensions may be allowed at the discretion of the Chair, subject to the provisions of the governance rules. A person may ask a maximum of 2 questions at any one meeting. The Chair will allocate a maximum of 5 minutes to each person who wishes to address Council or ask questions. The Chair, Councillor or Council Officer to whom a question is referred may immediately answer the question or take the question on notice for answering at a later date. There will be no discussion or debate with public attendees. However, councillors may ask questions of the attendee for clarification. So I do have a couple of questions here. And the first question is from Mr. Trevor Davey from Waterloo. And the question is, I'd like to know the reasoning behind the removal of the cuppa and chats in the Shire monthly and the removal of a vocal council meeting. I think Mr. Gowans, are you going? Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Davey, for this question. At the April council meeting this year, council endorsed its engagement plan for 2025, which includes a significant list of engagement actions proposed over the course of the year. In respect to the community cuppas, there are some logistical challenges for councillors and officers in doing these in the way that they have been conducted in the past. Council understands that some members of the community value this format of engagement, and while many of the cuppas were well attended, on some occasions these cuppas were not, and the exercise did not necessarily represent good use of resources on all occasions. Councillors and council officers, however, continue to make themselves available for direct engagement with members of the community. There's also been an expectation by other members of the community to increase the engagement opportunities in other formats. And council has made increasing effort to engage, for example, through council's online engagement. Council also regularly holds face-to-face engagements in communities on specific issues, such as the Avoca flood mitigation project, on telecommunications recently, and on the Beaufort Dog Off Leash Park, just to give a couple of examples of the specific face-to-face engagements that council is doing. Council will continue to review its engagement methods, including face-to-face engagements in communities where this may be beneficial, acknowledging that some of the constraints that we do operate in. In respect to formal council meetings, when council set a meeting schedule at the start of the year, council felt that holding meetings in Beaufort Chamber was the most effective and efficient choice for councillors. People movement and travel, logistics relating to live streaming were factors in that decision. The ability for members of the public to access meetings online and past attendance at meetings were also factors. Council would, however, be open to relocate a meeting or to hold a special council meeting in Avoca if there was a good reason to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. I have a second question here, again from Mr. Trevor Davey at Waterloo. The Waterloo's township sign has been missing for many months on the north side, Lexington side. Can you please have this replaced? Is that you, Mr. Gowans? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. Davey, for your question regarding the Waterloo entrance sign. And thank you for bringing this to the organisation's attention. Council will order and install a replacement sign. Please feel free to utilise the Council's customer action request system for similar requests so that we can address these issues in a timely and systematic way.
And is there any questions from the gallery? None at this stage. Thank you. I'd like to mention an urgent business item that's will be before us tonight. So for that to be considered, we need to have a vote on it, to whether we're going to have a look at it tonight. So it's 11.3.10 Primary Producer Support Payment Program. So any council, would they like to vote that be accepted and have a look tonight? Councillor Toll, we got a seconder? All those in favour? Thank you.
And that'll be considered at the...
Yeah, and that will be considered as it comes up at item 11.3.10. So, and we'll get to that. We just needed to go through that bit of governance initially. Brings us to item 9, councillor activity reports. So everyone's been reasonably busy there, which is great. Can I have a councillor recommendation that council notes this report? Thank you. Seconded, councillor Field, and all those in favour? Thank you. 10, item 10.1, Assembly of Councillors for June 2025. again, there's been a little bit happening there. Offer recommendation, the council notes this report. Can I have a councillor recommend that, please? Thank you, Rebecca, and seconded, councillor Toll. And that brings us to item 11, items for decision, economic development and tourism, 11.1.1. Mr. Nolan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And the purpose of this report is to provide an update to councillors and the community about some of the economic development activities that have been occurring. It's a fairly lengthy report and I won't speak to it in detail, but just for the benefit of those online, I'll mention a few things. And I guess importantly, this is also in response to council's desire in its new council plan that was adopted last month to give a greater level of attention to economic growth and economic development in the Shire. So this report identifies some of those activities for the last quarter. There's reference there to some specific larger projects which have been a focus in recent times, including the Southern Wimmera and Northern Pyrenees water supply project, the Beaufort Lake Caravan Park, and the completion of stage 1 there, which council previously received a report. There's a report on the status of the Beaufort off-leash dog park, which is going through a consultation process, shop facade program, and actions arising from the digital connectivity plan, which is an important issue that council has identified in terms of connecting our communities. There's a report on cycle routes, which were identified as a priority opportunity in respect of growing tourism in the region, and a report on business support. Particularly in respect of business support, there's reference to something like 12 workshops that have been held across the Shire in that time that provide support to various parts of the community around topical issues that benefit business and particularly the agricultural sector. They include a range of topical issues. Events are also an important aspect of growing the economy, and there are a number of significant events that have been held within the Shire, of which the Economic Development Unit has provided a range of support for those. From a tourism perspective, Tourism Midwest Sub-Destination Positioning Framework is the strategic document that guides a lot of our tourism activity. And the campaigns over the coming weeks, there's the Play in the Pyrenees campaign, which has been a little bit of a challenge in recent times because of the impact of climate on our landscapes with drying conditions over recent months. So there is an emphasis through that campaign to emphasise food and wine, accommodation and seasonal events, camping and hiking and the like to attract visitation to the region. The Road to Red Winter campaign is in full swing right at the moment, and that's all about growing and promoting our region as a wine growing region, and a region that produces some exceptional wines. The official visitor guide is a guide that's been prepared to provide opportunities for visitors to the region to enjoy the offerings that we have. The report identifies some digital statistics in terms of how we're marketing at a local level. So these are digital statistics in respect of council's Facebook and Instagram posts in the Visit Pyrenees social media. So that's in addition to any of the social media that promotes our region from Tourism Midwest Victoria that attracts visitation to the region. In terms of any sort of strategic issues and discussions that are identified within the report, there's some further documentation about the economic benefits associated with the Stage 1 Beaufort Caravan Park project, of which council contributed 500,000 of its own funding and 500,000 from a state grant. And the estimated local economic impact of that on in the creation of in growing the economy. So in conclusion, councillors, there is a recommendation there that council notes this report. The council monitors the direct economic benefits of phase 1 of the Beaufort Lake Caravan Park development over the coming months, and that council continues to advocate for government funding to implement stages 2 to 4 of the redevelopment of the Lake Caravan Park.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Councillors have a recommendation there. Can we have someone to move that, please? Seconder? Would you like to talk on that, Councillor Finn?
Working. Great to see the focus there on some of the promotions and campaigns to support the wine region in particular. Play in the Pyrenees and Road to Red Winter campaign. As I've said at many council meetings, also really important that we remember that broader ecosystem that's required around events, which includes accommodation, small business shops that can actually, you know, serve sandwiches and soups and whatever else for visitors who are coming to the region. And also the connection as well with digital connectivity, and great to see that listed in the report with particular mention of Lexden and its very poor connectivity. But without this kind of whole ecosystem working together, I think we will struggle to get really consistent visitation to the region. We need that accommodation, we need digital connectivity, and greater activity and support for small businesses that really support visitors when they come to the region. But otherwise, really pleased to see the activity there. Thank you.
Councillor Toll? Councillor Borthwick? I think it's really good. It's a pretty comprehensive report. There's a lot of things considered in it, which is fantastic. And I just asked the residents, I know people are doing it tough, we all know that, but I ask residents to support these activities in our local business. Your contributions, no matter how big or small, certainly help and are appreciated by any and all businesses. So if you can help out and support our businesses, that's fantastic. The recommendations there, all those in favour? Thank you. 11.1.2, small business report. Mr. Nolan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is consistent with the theme of providing economic development opportunities, and this is all about supporting small business in our community. And there are really two initiatives here that are just identified that I'll speak to briefly. First is the Small Business Friendly Charter, and Council has been a member of has endorsed the Small Business Charter previously, and part of Council's commitment in endorsing that charter is commitment to do things that actually assist small business in being able to do their business. So things like ensuring any work that we engage small business to do from a Shire perspective, that we actually pay their invoices within a short period of time. And cash flow is really important to small business. Things like ensuring that if we're actually doing works on roadways and within the community, that and where those works actually impact on business, that we actually work collaboratively with the business and provide appropriate notification around those things. So these are some of the commitments that are provided under being part of the Small Business Friendly Charter. The second initiative is the Business Friendly Council program. So this is an initiative where we've just recently agreed to take on this program. And by being part of this program, which is a state government initiative, it provides access to specialised facilitated support for business, customised tools and resources to accelerate permit approval processes, comprehensive cultural change toolkit, and online learning modules to help build capacity within and across council teams. So part of this program is to provide resources and assistance to actually within the council organisation to be geared up to be able to provide that that support to business. And then finally, the economic development strategy is mentioned there, and we have commenced a process to seek to undertake a review of the economic development strategy with a view to identifying targeted potential economic opportunities in the future. And this is a central part of the council's council plan initiatives. And it's expected that that would be undertaken in the coming months, and that there'll be engagement with our communities around that in due course. Councillors, that's so essentially I'm presenting this report and seeking the council notes. The report endorses council's participation in the government's business-friendly council initiative.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Councillors, we have a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Toll, we've got a seconder. Thank you. Councillor Toll, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Frey. I think it's a great opportunity we've got to support our small businesses. They're the backbone of the local economy, apart from the rural sector and the wineries, of course. A great idea to get them paid within 14 days. There'll probably be some that ring up and say they haven't been paid in 14 days, but their invoices aren't right. But look, that's what keeps them going, the constant cash flow and all that. So anything we can do to help them, I think it's a great idea.
Councillor Phelan?
Yeah. Thank you. It pleases me greatly to see that under both of those programs there is a commitment to increasing the efficiency of permit processes for those, including for those trying to establish small businesses. Since I arrived in the region, it was probably the one issue that was raised with me more than any other was really, incredibly challenging processes for people who are trying to establish small business. So great to see that that is an aspect of both of those programs, and then to see that kind of flow through the whole organisation, that we are really trying to support people with efficient planning permit processes. And in doing so, reducing costs for them, saving time and getting more businesses up and running. Thank you.
Councillor Walker? Yeah, I think I really welcome these initiatives too. I think it's great. It's a really good move forward. But I would like to mention, it's great that we have those discussions with like councils, and that's really important, but we mustn't lose sight that we need to continually listen to the community and the businesses and accept that one size doesn't fit all. So we need to continually follow that theory, because we've got some inequities in this within our municipality that others don't have. So we need to be mindful of those. But it's a really great initiative, and yeah, I welcome it. So all those in favour? Thank you. 11.2.1 flood mitigation investigation, Avoca Recreation Reserve. Mr. Gowan, is that you?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this report is for council to consider the recommendations and final report for the flood mitigation investigation for the Avoca Recreation Reserve. Building on the 2021 Upper Avoca flood investigation, an appropriately qualified consultant, Water Technology, was commissioned to conduct the Avoca Recreation Reserve flood mitigation plan. The project included a full flood assessment and potential mitigation options to protect the Avoca Recreation Reserve and surrounding properties from future flood events. One of the key elements of this project was community engagement. Avoca Recreation Reserve user groups and the broader Avoca community were provided with several community in-person sessions. There were 7 mitigation options that were presented in the final report, and 2 of these mitigation options were progressed to the cost-benefit analysis stage, and the report contains all the mitigation options that were explored and investigated. The draft final report outlined the following recommendations: that flood barriers be installed around the Avoca football and netball club rooms to protect the building from future flood events, that relocating the men's shed building outside the flood-prone area and rebuilding the netball and tennis courts with flood-resilient designs. At the June council meeting, council resolved to release the final draft report to the Avoca Recreation Reserve user groups and the broader Avoca community, and commit to undertaking a community information session on the recommendations of the draft report. And council undertook this consultation session in early July. When the recommendations were put to the community members who were present, there was a general understanding of how the consultants arrived at their recommendations. However, there were views expressed regarding disappointment that option 1, which is a new levy around the entire recreation reserve, was not the recommended option, as it from a user group perspective, solved all the issues for the Avoca Recreation Reserve and the men's shed. There was also strong views expressed that the small levy that protects the petanque piste should be extended to further protect the oval fence and scoreboard, which was modelled in option 3. Additionally, it was stated that the way to completely resolve the flooding issue was to relocate the oval and its supporting facilities to land that does not flood. The consultants have recommended that a flood barrier be installed around the Avoca football netball club rooms to protect the building, as the history of recovery for the Rec Reserve has been that the oval and hard surface courts can generally be brought back to use in to a usable standard within a short period of time, but the building takes much longer. The community raised concerns with this recommendation regarding the physical impact of a wall surrounding the building on 3 sides, and the potential manual labour required for any flood infrastructure to be in place in the lead up to a flood, along with the need to provide storage for the infrastructure. The flood mitigation and cost benefit analysis report for the Avoca Recreation Reserve flood investigation and the recommendations provided a well-researched and considered guide to future decision making. The Avoca community has been at the centre of this report, and their views are reflected in the potential solutions. And it's the officer recommendation that council receives the flood mitigation investigation report and recommendations, acknowledging the level of technical input into the report, and see a further minor inclusion into the final report regarding commentary on the concept of a town protection weir. Secondly, that council work with the community to investigate the options of recreation reserve relocation and the feasibility and viability of this option. 3, that council work with the men's shed group to investigate relocation options that could leverage existing community facilities and the investment requirements for any relocation. 4, that council support the extension of the existing levy as presented in option 3 to further protect the Avoca Rec Reserve assets from the velocity effects of flood water. And 5, that council pursue funding for the extension of the existing levy, which is option 3.
Thank you, Mr. Gowns. Councillors, we have a recommendation there. If someone like to move it, Councillor Wardlaw, have we got a seconder? Councillor Toll, Councillor Wardlaw, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Councillor Ferrari. Firstly, I'd like to commend the officers and everyone that was involved in the investigation process. It's been a long one. There's a lot of work done. I'm just really pleased to see that, although it may look like we've just gone around in circles, we've actually looked at every opportunity and what we can do for the best for the people that use the grounds, but also financially as well, because, you know, we don't really want to be throwing money away that can be better spent elsewhere when there are options that could help us to the future. And hopefully, you know, it may take 5 or 10 years, but maybe we can work towards shifting the grounds. But if we go for this levy option, it's going to extend the life of the grounds that we have and the usefulness. So, and you've listened to the community there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Toll, Councillor Phelan. I too would like to thank the council officers for the amount of work that's gone into these investigations. It's very thorough and it's not easy. And I also like to thank the officers for the level of community engagement, because we've been asking for that for a long time. And sometimes we have to make decisions that aren't necessarily agreeable by the community, but the most way to see forward through that is to make sure we've engaged with them and they've had some understanding. So I thank you all for that. All those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. 11.2.2, review 10-year asset plan. Mr. Gowans.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this report is for council to consider the review 10-year asset plan and undertake engagement with the community on the revised plan. The Local Government Act 2020 requires council to develop, adopt and keep in force an asset plan. The plan requires a scope of at least the next 10 financial years. Since the introduction of the new Act, the 10-year asset plan has been reviewed on an annual basis. The draft 25 to 34 10-year asset plan is a major refresh to align with the requirements of the Act and Council's recently adopted plan. The June 2025 revision to the 10-year asset plan includes the following changes: alignment with the recently adopted 10-year financial plan, updated project lists to reflect changes in asset conditions, and minor changes to asset class descriptions. It's proposed that engagement with the community be undertaken on the revised plan and that the plan be brought back to council to consider and adopt at a future council meeting. The 10-year asset plan provides the Pyrenees community with assurance that public assets will be sustainably maintained to meet their needs. And the officer recommendation is that council undertakes engagement with the community on the revised 10-year asset plan 2025 to 2034, and that council considers adopting the revised plan at a future meeting of council.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. Council, do you have a recommendation there? Would someone like to pass that? Recommend that. Councillor Woodward. Second, Councillor Phelan. Councillor Woodward, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Councillor Ferrari. Just briefly, it's another thing that a lot of thought goes into. We're always reviewing what we have, how we use it, and what we're going to do in the future to replace it, for example. So hopefully we are hitting the mark with all of that, and we're just going to keep an eye on it on the way.
Councillor Phelan.
Thank you. Councillor Ferrari, just echoing comments from your and Councillor Wardlaw's comments from the previous agenda item. Just good again to see that this is going out for community consultation. Really encourage the community to get involved, to look at the 10-year asset plan and then to seeing what comes back to council with any revision from community members. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Toll, would you like to speak on that?
I'd just like to echo, it's great that we've got community consultation in the process on these. And the assets, especially the roads, are a very fluid thing. They change depending on the weather and the climate conditions. And well, if we fix something in stone and so we can't do that till the following year, well, everything's got to be changed as it progresses along. So I think that's great. We've addressed that and we're listening to the community and reflecting those needs.
Thank you. Yeah, Pyrenees has got some significant amount of assets and some really, really important assets. The unfortunate thing is a lot of those are ageing, and it will take a fair bit of work to make sure that we undertake the required work and source the required funding to ensure their longevity. So, recommendation there, councillors. All those in favour? Thank you. 11.2.3, 2025-26 key capital works projects. Mr. Gowans, you again, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report seeks council's endorsement of the upcoming 2025-26 financial year's major road, bridge and major culvert capital works projects. The approved 25-26 budget includes $3 million for major road construction and bridges, with a provisional additional $1 million loan allowance for bridge upgrades to remove load limits on bridges. Additional to the 25-26 budget is external funding from the TAC funded through the Safer Local Roads and Streets program. And that's a funding of up to $2 million to assist with improvements to the safety of the road network. The prioritised capital program is listed in the report. I won't go through each item, but it's quite comprehensive. Included in the report is a list of priority bridge projects proposed to be undertaken subject to matching funding, utilising council's $1 million loan commitment as co-contribution where projects may be eligible for funding under state and Commonwealth funding programs. And the total value of the sub-program of projects is estimated on a best case scenario, leveraging 80% of the additional funding, which is an additional $4 million from external federal funding. So that still needs to be applied for. It's just to provide the community with a key list of priority bridges that need to have work done on them. The capital program for roads, bridges and major culverts is a significant proportion of council's budget. It provides the public and the community with assets that are maintained, improved and renewed to provide an ongoing service level or an improved level of service where funding is available. And it's the officer recommendation that council endorses a list of projects within the report for road, bridge and major culvert projects to proceed with construction in the 25-26 financial year and to seek external funding for relevant bridge projects.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. Officers, we have a recommendation here. Would someone like to move that? Move, Councillor Phelan. We got a seconder, Councillor Toll. Councillor Phelan, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you. This list certainly gives a really strong sense of the significant works that are required to be undertaken each year. So thank you for that really comprehensive list, and I'm sure it's a challenge to get through all of those works. Now, it is a long list, but I am going to jump to one of them, which I've personally been down to inspect a couple of times, and that is the Redbank streetscape. I do note that those works were due for completion last financial year, and just wanted to note that unless it may well be that some further works have happened in the last few days, but as of a week ago, I know there were still concerns about some safety issues with deep trenches on the side of the road. So just wanting to ensure that is on the radar of the outdoor staff, but looking forward to seeing the outcome of that project as well as the many others. Thank you.
You wish to speak, Mr. Gowans?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor Phelan, for your commentary relating to the Redbank streetscape project, and absolutely take those concerns on notice. I am aware that there is still some ongoing works to finish phase 1 of the project, and there is obviously an allowance in the capital works program to undertake some further works to complete the original community vision, which wasn't part of the original funding work, which does include some pavement and curb and channel works on the north side of one of the key streets there. So, but take on board those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. Councillor Toll, would you like to speak on it?
Thank you. Look, I think it's terrific that we've addressed the need to loan some money to get some of our bridges up to speed and reduce, get rid of the load limit signs for the farming community, and which have been severely impacted. And I would encourage if they're going to give us some co-funding, borrow some more money and expand the program and get it done while that's available. So well done for identifying them all, and it's probably a good time to be in the bridge building industry. Thank you.
Mr. Nolan, would you like to comment on that?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just have to respond to Councillor Toll's suggestion about further loan funds. As Mr. Gowans has emphasised here, the objective is to maximise the loan funds that council have agreed to at this stage, to leverage that to secure external funds. The reality is that it's going to be a challenge to leverage it all. You know, 2 bridges that we recently have applied for funding for have actually been unsuccessful. And so there's a lot of work goes into actually trying to secure these funds. Obviously, you know, the better, the more applications we make, the better chances of success, and we will certainly be giving that a good crack to make sure that we secure as much external funds to support the council loan amount that's been committed. And should there be a need for additional loans, if we're successful with the number of these, then we'll certainly be bringing a report back to councillors' attention.
Thank you, Mr. Noel. Councillor Walker, would you like to speak on that? Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done there, granted, and a lot of times we get held up by weather, and that's just a fact of life. It is what it is. No one likes it. It just puts us further behind. But, you know, just for the benefit of the people watching and in the room, we've got about 2,000 kilometres of roadway to maintain. That's paved and unpaved. And on my understanding, I stand corrected, but we've got about 150 odd bridges. So that's a lot of work to undertake, and they're not small projects. So you can understand why this, it's hard to keep up, but we do our best, and there's a significant amount of work there to be undertaken. So hopefully we can get some kind weather, although we need the rain. Councillor, you have a recommendation there. All those in favour? 11.3.1, Corporate and Community Services, Instrument of Appointment Authorisation, Jacinda Erdity, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this report is for council to adopt an instrument of appointment and authorisation with respect to the municipal building surveyor. The Local Government Act requires council to review its delegations, appointments and authorisations as required. This is done when updates to legislation are received or new staff appointments require appropriate delegations or authorisations to be implemented to allow that officer to fulfil the role and their obligations. The incumbent in the role of the municipal building surveyor has changed, hence why this report is being put forward, and to appoint a new officer as an authorised officer and to fulfil the requirements of the role, an instrument of appointment and authorisation is required to delegate authority from the council. On this basis, the recommendation is that council, in the exercise of the powers conferred by the Local Government Act 2020 and other legislation referred to in the attached instrument of appointment and authorisation, resolves that 1, the officer appointed in the role of municipal building surveyor to be designated an authorised officer to conduct the powers, duties and functions as set out in the attached instrument of appointment and authorisation, subject to any conditions and limits specified in that instrument. And 2, the instrument comes into force immediately. It is signed by council's chief executive officer and remains in force until council determines to vary or revoke it. And 3, that all previous delegations relating to the role of municipal building surveyor be revoked upon the chief executive officer signing the new instrument.
Thank you very much, councillors. We have a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? It's moved. Have we got a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Phelan, would you like to speak to that?
I would. I note that Mr. Daniel DeLacy has been appointed to the role, correct? And that would be the same Daniel, who is currently in the engineering department? No? Oh, different. Okay. That's good, because I was going to say if it's the same Daniel, but I hope he enters into the new role with the same spirit and the same community focus that he has demonstrated in his role, but different Daniel, so not a problem. Thank you.
Councillor Wood, Councillor Toll, would you like to speak? It's my understanding, again, correct me if I'm wrong, just to clarify, that's an external appointment, so they're not actually. From my understanding, they're not actually employed by the council, they're contracted, it's a separate role. So if that's right, yeah. Thank you. Councillors, we have a recommendation there. All those in favour? Thank you. 11.3.2, Risk Management Insurance Renewal 25-26, absurdity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this report is presented to council to endorse the insurance renewal program placed for the 25-26 financial year. As part of good governance and mitigation of risk, the council annually purchases and maintains insurance as part of sharing risk for various lines, including public liability, professional indemnity, property, crime, cyber, travel and motor. The annual insurance program, excluding work cover, was successfully procured for another year commencing 1 July 2025. There's significant amount of information in there in relation to the various policies, which I'm not going to read through tonight and I'll take as read. So in conclusion, insurance has been procured for the 25-26 financial year through MAV and JLT public sector, with premium detail provided to council separately as a confidential document. The council is asked to endorse payment of the 25-26 insurance premiums, which reflect an overall increase of 10.67% over the previous year. So the officer recommendation is that Council 1 notes the information provided in the report, and 2 endorses payment of $679,652.04 for the procurement of the 25-26 insurance program.
Councillors, we have a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Yes.
Thank you. I'd just like to move motion against the motion as such on this one,
Can't.
or amend the motion.
Got to,
Move the motion that he wants to move.
you have to put forward the motion you'd like to move. An alternative.
It's a difficult one because we've already committed to it, haven't we? We're endorsing the 670,000's been paid.
He has to move a motion to be able to speak to
Yeah, you need to move a motion to be able to speak to it.
Alternatively, can ask the question.
Or you can ask a question. Yeah.
Yeah. Has the $672,000 been paid? And at a discussion we had at a council briefing on the 12th of May, we were looking into alternatives and maybe setting up a fund, a self-insurance fund that we were going to put some money aside and have as a pool rather than paying all that money out. So can I have that question answered, please?
Ms. Erdity, thank you.
Through you, Mr Chair, and thank you for the question, Councillor Toll. So my understanding is, and I'm happy to stand corrected, is that the discussion that we had back in May and the self-fund proposal is a plan moving forward. So we have to move to that. So a lot of the work that needs to happen to enable that will happen through the 25-26 year, and then the changes will take effect from the commencement of the 26-27 year.
I was under the assumption at that meeting that we were going to be doing that prior to purchasing our insurance or going down the current way.
Would you like to ask a question, Councillor Phelan?
Yes, can I, mine is just a point of clarification, and I think it is this same point as well that Councillor Toll is referring to. I think specifically with the DCAR-owned assets, which we are currently paying insurance for, we had a discussion about no longer paying for assets which we don't own and which in effect we can't make any claim against. So I just wanted to check if the DCA owned, so these are the DCA owned community assets. So I think there were examples like the Landsborough Recreation Reserve, the pavilion. Are they included in this insurance payment?
Are you able to answer that, Ms. Erdity?
Through you, Mr Chair, and thank you for the question, Councillor Phelan. So that is correct. So the proposed changes to start considering the removal of those for future policies were to undertake that engagement through the current financial year. So the fund element was around those assets that were below a certain value and taking those off the policy, but there was more work to occur throughout the current financial year.
Which is what's
Yeah. Just looking at the previous recommendation, so and it's exactly what you've just been clarified. So just one thing I wasn't sure if I didn't hear properly, but one of the questions asked was, has that amount been paid already?
Through you, Mr Chair, that is correct.
Mr Toll?
Well, I suppose we can't do anything about it now, but, yeah.
So we have a recommendation. Would any other councillors like to speak to that?
Well, I think just to the point that councillor Toll raised, it does seem odd that we're being asked to endorse this recommendation when in fact the payment has already been made. You know, this should come to us for endorsement before a payment's been made. Presumably we can't get the payment back, the funds back. So it is very challenging to endorse something which has already happened.
Thank you, councillor Field. Councillor Wardle, would you like to speak on anything? Councillor Toll, got anything further?
No.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you're right. It's the payment's been made. So, but I do feel we need to have some significant input and a real close look at what we can do for the next season. I'm sure if we put a fair bit of work into it, we're going to have some pretty good savings. And at the moment, every little bit makes a difference. So I think we need some further discussion. Clearly, need some further discussion on this at some stage, which I'm sure we'll have. And we need to be clear what we need to do to move forward and to try and reduce that amount. It is significant, but there's a big risk if we don't have items insured.
Thank you, councillor Ferrari. I mean, at least to reflect what is the reality, could we perhaps change the recommendation to note that council has already paid the 600,000. So we can't really be asked to endorse something that has been paid. If the officer recommendation were that council note these funds have already been paid, well, I can accept that because in fact it is a fact, but yeah. I don't really think it's fair on council.
So do you want to move an alternative motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move an alternate motion.
Well, there's no motion at the moment. It's just a recommendation. So it's to move the motion that.
So you want to add in your note that the insurance has already been paid?
Note that $679,000 has been paid for the procurement of insurance.
Yes.
In item 2.
Correct.
Yeah. So add that in.
Instead of asking us to endorse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
So we got a second there.
Have we got a seconder for that recommendation? Thank you, councillor Wardle. All those in favour of that recommendation? Thank you. You against?
Sorry, did we have a show of hands?
All those in favour of that recommendation? Yeah. Councillor Toll? Yes. Thank you. Good discussion. 11.3.3 update on Pyrenees Aquatics. Ms. Erdedy, again, please.
Thank you, Mr Chair. So the purpose of this report is to provide an end of 24-25 pool season summary, including a review of community participation, operational outcomes and update on planning process for council pools. The 24-25 pool season experienced targeted growth in participation and an associated increase in season pass sales. However, operations were affected by safety-related closures due to unforeseen maintenance needs, which were necessary to ensure continued safety and asset sustainability. When compared against the 23-24 season, community attendance across all assets recorded a combined visitation increase of 6.3%. In preparation for the 25-26 season, council officers have been working closely with Belgravia Leisure and our associated contractors to prioritise a range of proactive maintenance and compliance items across all 3 facilities. The 25-26 scope of works has been informed by an asset condition assessment report, Royal Life Saving Society safety audits, and liaison with Belgravia Leisure and advice from other engaged industry professionals. Management of the Pyrenees Shire pools, current service operations were contracted to Belgravia in 2021, and all extension options have been taken, with the contract expiring now on the 30th of August 2026. Aquatic service planning. Council pool assets are at the end of their estimated lifespan, and council officers have initiated strategic analysis and planning process for the municipality's aquatic facilities. The completion of technical audits and asset condition assessments, which provide guidance for short-term asset management and maintenance to ensure the continued functionality of the pools. So a range of additional information in relation to visitation and costs for the pool for the season, and considering the range of unanticipated work and the contract price increase, officers have contained expenditure and delivered on their commitment to support safe facilities. Council continues to balance challenges associated with its ability to maintain and develop ageing pool infrastructure, ensuring that the cost of managing and operating the pools is proportionate to demands from other equally important services. So the officer recommendation is that Council 1 receives and notes the end of year pool report for 24-25 season. 2, Council considers future budget initiatives to complete proposed stage works. And 3, support officers to explore funding opportunities to undertake the more detailed investigations and to develop a comprehensive feasibility study and business case.
Thank you. Councillors have a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Wardlaw, have we got a seconder? Councillor Field and Councillor Wardlaw, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Councillor Ferrari. On this, I just want to make note that we know how important the pools are to the community. You know, there's always talks about, are they worth the money? Well, you know, it's important. The people want it, so we need to do the best to keep it. We've all seen what's happened in other shires when they've closed, and we don't want to go that way. But I'd just like to bring into it about something that we discussed at times about a different management method, whether we are actually going to look into the Shire managing the pools with staff as opposed to contracting it out. So if someone can address that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Councillor Wardlaw would like to include that in her motion.
Would you like to include that in the motion?
Oh, yes.
And seconder.
Can have someone have a seconder on that? Thank you, Councillor Field.
What do you get on the paper?
Yeah, Ms. Erdity.
Through you, Mr Chair, and thank you for the question. So I can confirm that as part of the work officers will undertake through the review of the contract renewal, it will consider all the various operating models.
Anyone else like to speak to this one? Yes, Councillor Todd.
Thank you. I'd just like to reinforce what Councillor Wardlaw said about the importance of the pools, and we found that out when we had a hiccup with the Beaufort pool, and also further enhanced the running of other options. I know Buninyong pools run by the community, and apparently it's going very, very well for them over there. So I think the force of our little swimming group down here would dearly love to take 500,000 off us to run their pool, and we might get some cost savings out of that. So let's explore that when it comes up in a timely fashion, please.
Councillor Field.
Also, just to echo the importance of this community infrastructure, and to give a plug for the smallest of those 3 pools, the little Lansborough pool, not the toddler pool, which I know is in a state of disrepair, but the other small pool. And I know that we are having to make a significant subsidy for each visit because of the very small population in Lansborough, but it is a really important community facilities, and the locals there have told me that in fact it's one of the, if not the only meeting place for teenage age community members. So a really important gathering place for young people, and the community is very much wanting to keep that asset in a good state of repair and open for the pool season. So I appreciate all of our investigations and funding efforts to get funding for this. Thank you.
No, any further discussion? Shall we have that new recommendation? All those in favour? Thank you. 11.3.4, 25-26 budget adjustments. Surdity again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this report is to consider some additional budget considerations post the initial adoption of the 25-26 budget based on the community's submissions. So although Council only recently adopted the 25-26 budget, through the public exhibition process, there were a number of specific items that were identified that Council have sought further consideration of. So those issues, the Waubra Community Asset Committee, the CAC, minor maintenance allocation of $30,000 in order to support the CAC to meet their most urgent minor and maintenance operating expenses. The Waubra Recreation Reserve has a number of maintenance matters that need to be completed to assist and enable the effective operation of the facility, whilst retaining fair and accessible user fees for regular users of the facility. So although Council had not specifically allocated funds to the Waubra CAC, it has provided support through various other measures, which I've listed within the report there. One of the other consideration is the Waubra Recreation Reserve for a $60,000 amount to enable officers who are currently working to finalise the Waubra Recreation Reserve Master Plan for Council review and endorsement for community feedback. But beyond that, the master plan, the Council need to be in a position to seek relevant funding for priority projects and therefore need to undertake more detailed design costings, which that funding will enable. Avoca residential lot planning, $100,000. So Council owns land in Avoca that is marked as a future residential development opportunity. But for this to become a reality, investigation and development planning is required in preparation for future subdivision. So from a fees and charges perspective, local law business support permits and applications with an approximate impact and expense of $7,200. Council recognises the current economic and natural climate challenges not only impact our agricultural sector, but have a significant flow-on effect to our local businesses. Drought support measures for primary producers have recently been announced by the Victorian Government. However, similar financial supports are not available to small business in our towns, which are also impacted. To support the continued activation of business during this period of drought, the waiver of the following local law fees are recommended: display and sale of goods, outdoor dining facilities, and advertising signs. The waiver of the above fees will not remove the requirement that the applicants will need to submit the relevant permit, but will obviously reduce the fee. Continuing in that theme, room and hall hire for community groups with a maximum impact expenditure of $30,000. So to further support our local community to create more opportunities for local community-based organisations which provide opportunity for social connection and broader health and wellbeing activities that is inclusive for the broader community, waiver is sought on hire fees, not bonds, associated with room and hall hire facility. So the officer recommendation is that Council resolve to 1, allocate the following projects to be funded from Council's $250,000 new initiative budget. A, Waubra Community Asset Committee, minor maintenance, $30,000 with defined conditions as detailed within the body of the report. B, Waubra Recreation Reserve, detailed design elements of priority improvements from the Waubra Master Plan, $60,000. C, allocate funds to undertake necessary planning for the proposed Avoca residential development site, $100,000. D, waive the local law business support fees as detailed within the body of this report for the 25-26 financial year with an estimated waiver value of $7,200. And E, waive the room and hall hire facility fees as defined within the body of this report for local community-based organisations which are utilising the facilities for the purposes of social connection and broader health and wellbeing activities that enable participation from the broader community with an estimated waiver value of $30,000.
Thank you. Councillors, we have a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Fionn, we got a second that. Councillor Wardlaw, would you like to speak to that, Councillor Fionn?
Thank you, Councillor Ferrari, and thank you for putting forward this paper and recommendation for councillors. It is really pleasing to see this effort on the part of the Pyrenees Shire to acknowledge some of the challenges that the smaller community-based organisations are facing. So really welcome those fee waivers, and particularly for things like some of the signage fees that people have been having to pay and have raised as real issues with me in the Decameron ward. So yeah, really welcome these fee waivers and just that broader recognition that in fact it is quite challenging for some of the community groups and small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wardlaw.
Yeah, I welcome all of these suggestions that we're going to work towards. The residential development site, it'd be great to start doing some work on that. Waiving the fees, I think will go a long way with a few businesses, maybe a lot of businesses, and just you know, a bit of an olive branch for things that have gone on in the past. So I think that's really great. And then waiving the room and hall hire, absolutely fantastic. I just had one little question. Jacinta may be able to answer this for me in relation to E. This has come up, it's been requested by me to find this out, and I haven't had the opportunity, but it relates to this. So the U3A group in Avoca use the senior citizens building for line dancing. There's a chance that the Avoca branch of U3A will be closing. What they want to know is if they're a member of U3A in Maryborough, are they still allowed to use the Avoca senior citizens, and will they still be covered by insurance? If anyone can answer that or take it on notice.
Take it on notice?
Yeah.
Thank you. But it is a good question. Councillor Toll.
I just think it's terrific. We're spending a couple of $100,000 on our community, helping them out, and a lot of people, excuse me, will benefit from what we're doing there. I suppose the biggest problem I can see with this is people having to, their permits, they won't fill them out if they're not having to pay for them, I suppose. So we've got to find a simple way to make sure that they get the paperwork, because I believe that covers their insurance. So we better make sure that's done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It is a great initiative. Anyone else want to speak to that? No? It is a great initiative, and you know, you think a bit of money there, but it adds up to 250,000, which is quite significant. So that's really good, and that will be well received by the community and those businesses. Every little bit helps at the moment, as we know. So we've got the officer recommendation there. All those in favour? 11.3.5, lease the Avoca Caravan Park. Certity again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this report is to seek council direction in the capacity of the Committee of Management for the property known as the Avoca Caravan Park to recommence negotiations into lease with a leasee to manage and operate the site in accordance with the department's expectations and industry standards. The Avoca Caravan Park is department property with the Pyrenees Shire Council as the Committee of Management, who then sublease the property to manage and operate the site in accordance with the department lease terms and industry standards. The existing subleasee has operated the site since 2005, and that lease has come to an end. It is clear through the development of the council plan 25 to 29 that council has a strong desire to create opportunities for inclusive communities where visitors and residents want to live, invest and thrive. And this is reflected in both their vision and their strategic priorities. The ongoing accessibility and range of accommodation options for tourists to visit across the local government footprint will be critical in stimulating our economy and achieving the priorities of the plan. On this basis, the Avoca Caravan Park site is seen as one of many facilities which will enable this to occur. The officer recommendation associated with this report is 1, endorses the Chief Executive Officer to proceed with negotiations to enter into a suitable lease with existing subleasee, which enables relevant extension options for both short-term and longer-term aspirations to be achieved. 2, endorses the Chief Executive Officer to determine appropriate engagement and action in accordance with the Land Use Activity Agreement. And 3, approve any required public notice advertising in regards to the Local Government Act and Council's community engagement policy as deemed appropriate to the proposed renegotiated sublease.
Thank you. Councillors have a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that?
I'll batten outside my flags here again. Can I move motion to postpone the decision? How do I do that?
Well, you council move a motion to defer.
You can move the motion to defer the decision for tonight to a further council meeting.
I would like to move a motion that we defer the decision on redoing the lease to a further council decision, please.
We got a seconder on that? Thank you.
I'll second that.
Second. All those in favour? Thank you. That will be deferred. 11.3.6 NP 48 Wilker Road, Homebush. Jacinta again, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this report is for council to give notice of its intent to name an unnamed road in Homebush. Road names can recognise and reflect culture, heritage and landscape. Appropriate naming is essential to identify locations for managing emergencies and delivering goods and services. Therefore, it's important that unnamed roads are reflected accordingly. It is proposed to name the unnamed road referenced in this report as Wilker Road, and there is an attached map that locates the road. This unsealed road runs in a northwesterly direction abutting 5 properties and may offer secondary access to these properties. The Jaja Warren Clans Aboriginal Corporation have reviewed and responded to Council's request to incorporate traditional owner language in naming proposals, approving Wilker as part of their proposal. Wilker is a traditional owner language for Dingo. The officer recommendation is that Council 1 commences the naming process to name this unnamed road to Wilker Road. 2, gives public notice of the proposed naming of Wilker Road and asks the public submissions in accordance with section 223 of the Local Government Act 1989. And 3, writes to relevant surrounding property owners advising of the road naming proposal and invitation for public submissions.
Thank you. Councillors, we have a recommendation there. Thank you, Councillor Whitney. We've got a second of Councillor Field. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor?
Yes, please. Thank you. I would like to make an alteration to the motion to not recommend Wilker Road as the new name for this road at Homebush. I've got another example that I'd like to be considered in Campbell's Road, Campbell's Lane, Williams Road, William Campbell Road, or Wilcam Road. What you may not be aware of is back in 1882, right at the intersection where the road meets the road to Denali, a young man, William Campbell, who was 21 years old, tried to stop a wagon that had taken off out of control. He's grabbed the reins and he's been dragged under the wagon into the side of the building, right where that road intersects, and he passed away. And I would like the road intersecting that to be considered somehow to be named after him, if possible.
We got a second for that. Thank you, councillor Finn.
So just to be clear about what the motion is.
Yep,
Okay.
submitted the motion notice. Yep.
Did I sign it?
So you want that included in the recommendation. Thank you.
And that be sent out to the community
For consideration.
Yeah.
Yep. So we've got that alternative recommendation or inclusion on the recommendation. All those in favour? Thank you. NP 50, Kathleen Street, Avoca. Mr Erdity again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Chair. So purpose of this one is to give council notice of its intent to name an unnamed road in Avoca between Homebush Road and Station Street. Road names can recognise and reflect culture, heritage and landscape. Appropriate naming is essential to identify locations for managing emergencies and delivering goods and services. Therefore, it's important that unnamed roads are reflected accordingly. It is proposed to name this unnamed road Kathleen Street. This unsealed road runs in a southeasterly direction adjacent to 3 properties and acts as a secondary access point to these 3 properties. The name Kathleen Street honours nurse Kathleen Lucy Walker, born 1890 in Avoca. The use of the female commemorative name is in accordance with the Victorian Government's gender equality strategy. So the recommendation here is that Council 1 commences the naming process to name this unnamed road to Kathleen Street. 2, gives public notice of the proposed naming of Kathleen Street and invites public submissions. 3, writes to relevant surrounding property owners advising of the road naming proposal and invitation for public submissions.
Thank you. Councillors, we've got a recommendation there. Would someone like to recommend that? Thank you. We've got a seconder. Thank you. Would you like to speak to that, councillor?
Thank you again,
Wardlaw?
councillor Ferrari. I always love seeing, as we've had in the past, local women being acknowledged by, the names and I think a nurse that, served in World War One definitely deserves a street named after us. Thank you for that.
Councillor Phelan?
I'll just, echo councillor Wardlaw's comment. Really lovely to see local women acknowledged in this and remembered in the street names. And if I recall correctly, when in the first couple of months where we came onto the new council, we did have a couple of streets renamed, but using the surname of the woman. So it was actually difficult to identify that that street was named after a woman. So great to see the first name being used here, which identifies that we are finally acknowledging women's role. Thank you.
Councillor Toll. Yes. I just have got one question. When we name, whatever the decision is from the community feedback, say if we name it Kathleen Street in recognition of Kathleen Walker, which I think is fantastic, absolutely great, and very worthy of that recognition. Is there anywhere on the sign we can put underneath in recognition, say Kathleen Street in recognition of Kathleen Turner, so people can, I don't know if there's rules and regulations, but because Kathleen Street to me means nothing, if that makes sense. But if it said, if I read the small print, Kathleen Turner, or I'm happy for you to take that on notice.
No, thank you. Through you, Mr Chair. Just conversing with Mr Gowans there. So we can't put anything directly on the sign, but we could put a plaque or something in the area that recognises that contribution and the theory behind the naming.
Yeah, that'd be good for those ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Kathleen Street is Kathleen Street, but for the average person, they wouldn't know that, and I certainly wouldn't either unless I was part of this. So
yeah,
it'd be good for people to be able to examine what that recognition is. All those in favour? Thank you. 11.3.8 NP 51 Rosemary Way, Avoca. Certainty again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Purpose of this report is for council to give notice of its intent to name a currently unnamed road in Avoca between Davey Street and Camp Street. Road names can recognise and reflect culture, heritage and landscape. Appropriate naming is essential to identify locations for managing emergencies and delivering goods and services. Therefore, it's important that unnamed roads are rectified accordingly. It is proposed to name the unnamed road Rosemary Way. This unsealed road runs in a south direction, offering additional access points to properties that have High Street and Napier Street as their main frontage entry point. The name Rosemary Way honours nurse Rosemary Walker, born 1889 in Avoca. The use of female commemorative name is in accordance with the Victorian Government's gender equality strategy. And the recommendation is that Council 1 commences the naming process to name this unnamed road as Rosemary Way. 2 gives public notice of the proposed naming of Rosemary Way and asks for public submissions in accordance with Section 223 of the Local Government Act 1989. And 3 writes to relevant surrounding property owners advising of the road naming proposal and invitation for public submissions.
Thank you. Councillors, we've got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Move. So seconder? Councillor Toll?
Anyone?
Councillor Phelan, would you like to comment on that?
No, thank you.
Councillor Toll?
I'm just surprised that everyone in Avoca's been able to find their way home with no names on their streets, and it'll certainly make it easier for the local post office master to deliver the mail. So, thank you.
I've got nothing to add. I really like it. Thank you.
It's good, I think, and it's good to see that another person with that significant background and history is recognised. And so that's fine. So the recommendations here, all those in favour? Thank you. 11.3.9, ICT Transformation SharePoint. Ms. Erdity again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek Council's approval to enter into a contract for the upgrade of Council's electronic document management system to a SharePoint environment, which will overarch a number of other system changes previously approved within the Rural Council's transformation project. A key component of the Rural Council transformation project was ensuring that the selected systems could integrate with other core daily business as usual systems, including but not limited to our electronic document management system. The upgrade of our electronic document management system to a SharePoint-based environment has been budgeted for. However, the initial investigations of this element of the project indicated the total expense would be within the financial delegation of the Chief Executive Officer. However, further scoping of this upgrade and finalisation of the final procurement process has resulted in a total project expenditure above existing financial delegations. Therefore, the officer recommendation is that Council approves and authorises the Chief Executive Officer to award and sign relevant contract for the upgrade to the proposed SharePoint electronic document management system to the value of $330,000, which includes implementation, integration and licensing of the system software.
Thank you. Councillors, we have a recommendation here. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Phelan, we got a seconder, please. Councillor Wardle, would you like to speak to that? Councillor Phelan?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Ferrari. And just briefly, I know that IT systems are very costly and they often blow out when you start talking about maintenance, troubleshooting. So hopefully all of the troubleshooting and the maintenance as this gets established is included in that figure of 330, and hopefully implementation of the CRM will contribute to greater efficiencies within council. Thank you.
Councillor Wardle, Councillor Toll. All those in favour? Thank you. This brings us to our urgent business item, 11.3.10, Primary Producer Support Payment Program. Ms. Erdity again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Chair. So this report seeks council decision in relation to the distribution of the recently announced primary producer support payment program, which was announced on the 4th of July by the Premier of Victoria. The primary producer support payment program provides $35.8 million to selected southwest Victorian councils, of which Pyrenees Shire is one of those councils. The initial marking of the program from the government was around a 40% support payment to farm-rated properties. While the funding allocation has been costed against rate relief, the Victorian government provided councils with discretion to decide how to allocate the available funding to target the most severely drought-affected farming businesses. Officers attended an online information session on the 17th of July to understand any further elements of the funding, and it is worth recognising that this program will not consider new properties that may become eligible for the farm rate during the financial year. The program will only apply to those properties that were categorised as farm at the time of council's budget being adopted. So the recommendation is that council adopt the initial intent of the primary producer support payment program and apply a 40% support payment to all properties rated under the farm differential rate in accordance with the adopted 25-26 budget.
Thank you. Councillors, we've got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Yes, Councillor Wood, seconded, Councillor. Yes, you can ask a question. Absolutely.
Thank you for the recommendation. I just wanted to get clarification. It's noted that initial marketing from the government was for a 40% payment to farm-rated properties. However, I do recall, if my memory is correct, that it was in the earlier marketing, it was to primary producers, which is potentially a different category. So can we just get clarification on that point, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and thank you for the question, Councillor Phelan. So that is correct. So the government labelled it as primary producer as the name of the program intended, but how they've applied it is per the farm rate that's within council's budget.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, clarity. Yeah.
Can we go back to the government and just seek clarity on that one for primary producers and farm rate? Is that possible to do that?
Mr. Nolan?
Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Toll, for that question. I can understand where you're keen to go with this, and that as Mr Edity has explained, the actual calculation of the $2 million figure was based on the farm-rated properties as at the date council adopted the budget. So, so that figure is set in terms of how much council will receive to distribute to affected property owners. Council has some discretion in terms of how it goes about doing that. There's a proposal before you. In terms of going back to the government, we can certainly go back to the government and express the concern that is implied in the questioning here about those that might consider themselves primary producers but not eligible because they weren't on a farm rate. That can be something that we can advocate for, and we can bring that to the attention of government. In the case of the $2 million figure, that my understanding is that figure is set at this stage for us to distribute this financial year. Anything over and above that from the advocacy would need some further consideration by the state. But we can certainly draw attention to the inconsistency or the expectations of the community who might be effectively consider themselves primary producers but not eligible, and that's the key issue. So I'm happy to advocate on that.
Thank you.
You have another question, Councillor Phelan? No. I have got one question for clarity, but it will need to be on notice. At some stage, could you come back? I understand it's for farm rated properties. If it was included, if the primary production properties were included, how many additional properties would that be? So I'm happy if you to take that on notice, Ms. Erdely. I don't expect you
Thank
to come
you.
up there. And but I think that's important to know because it'd be nice to know what the actual figures are. So, yeah. So we had we got a seconder on that, please. We've had the conversation. All those in favour? Thank you. (11.4.1) membership, Timber Thames Victoria, Mr. Nolan.
So, Mr. Mayor, part of the reason for bringing this report to council is because there is continuing pressure on council's budget. I mean, we've talked about a number of initiatives and a number of things that council would like to do to support our communities. And so this is an example of where council provides membership fees to a body that in the past has been reasonably understood would meet a need or support council and council's activities. And in case of Timber Towns Victoria, there have been a range of aspects of the TTV activity that has been in council's interest. In particular, the work of TTV has involved consideration and advocacy around the impact of timber haulage on road networks. So where there are timber plantations in a community and the extraction of that timber on local roads creates an impact on our local communities. That has been a major driver for the formation of TTV in the first instance. And council has actually had some value out of that several years ago, where one of our roads was able to be funded in part with some support from funding on the back of TTV advocacy, as contained in the TIRES report. The recent TIRES review, however, has not identified any local roads in the Pyrenees that need upgrading in the immediate future. So whilst that was quite valuable at that time, there's not as much opportunity for that funding to flow. The group also look at other impacts of forestry practice and support members regarding the implementation of the Code of Practice, Forestry, and where it's in the community's interest. Support the advocacy associated with employment within the sector, important to rural and regional communities. And Timber Towns Victoria has advocated in recent times in respect of the state government's initiatives to reduce forestry in native plantations. And further research and provision of information for members on forestry-related matters. So that's some of the work of the Timber Towns Victoria does, and that's part of the reason why council has been a member. So what's included with this report is a copy of the strategic plan and a copy of the recent TIRES project to give council some understanding of that work. In October 2023, council at the time actually considered a report on this and resolved to continue membership at that stage, but to seek to have a waiver of the membership fees for 3 years. That was put to Timber Towns Victoria. Initially, they deferred the decision and then they resolved to set the fees at what they are now. Council didn't have any luck in actually securing membership without the appropriate fees. So part of what this report does in the context of that decision of Timber Towns to continue to allocate fees, bring this report back to the council to consider whether in fact you want to retain membership and pay the fee, or if you would discontinue its membership. And one of the other relevant factors here is the requirement for council, whether it be council officers or council laws, to contribute to the functions of the group. The group meets on a regular basis, and in the context of workload and the priorities that the councillor has set, this is one of the aspects that has been given less attention in recent months, and unless we're actually providing input into the work of timber towns, then we're not necessarily getting the relevant benefits back. So on that basis, councillors, I recommend that council discontinues its membership of Timber Towns Victoria, given council's ongoing financial constraints.
Thank you, Mr Nolan. That's a recommendation there, councillors. Anyone want to move that? We got a seconder?
No.
Councillor Toll, would you like to speak to that? Councillor Toll? Councillor Woodlaw? The only thing I would ask is, of course, if anything changes in that sector, we can re-engage at a later time, of course. Yeah. Okay, we've got the recommendation there. All those in favour? Thank you. Okay, it brings us to item 12, councillor reports and general business. So we might start off with councillor Toll. Yes, I'll bring forward.
Thank you very much. As you can see, we've been around to a few bits and pieces this in June, and it's been a terrific month of getting involved in the community's activity, and in particular that meeting down at Bukar on the ESVF, and I think we've achieved a bit of a result there, that we have got a hold on the ESVF, so that was well worthwhile and well supported. But my main concern that I want to raise tonight is the Western Highway. We've had 7 deaths in there in 12 months, and we discussed it in the briefing before. We've got to start to advocate fairly strongly to get a result down there. That's our first responders and our communities that are going to those accidents. It's also putting pressure on our arterial roads and the diversions. And out the front of home the other night was, we were just waiting for another accident, and then you mentioned what was going on in Avoca. We've got to really push this and try and get some funding to get a result, because there's plenty of us travel that road, and we don't want to be sitting here with a wreath on someone's desk talking about, someone fairly close to us being lost there because of that being sitting there with inactivity for numerous years. So I think we've got to make that a priority, allocate some funds to investigating for that and get something happening. But that's all I want to say tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Toll, would you like to move a motion on that we further investigate that?
I'd like to move a motion that we build it. That we advocate for increased and spend whatever money reasonably that we've got to do to do that, because I think it's one of our vitally important things in the community. I don't know how you want the motion worded, Jim.
So just clarification, Mr. Chair, that you'd like council to advocate for the completion of the duplication of that section of the Western Highway in the context, in light of recent.
What have we had? 2 in the last month, and God knows how many near misses and whatever. It's vitally important that something happens here. Transports are getting bigger and faster, and policing's getting weaker. So now you're left, Damien.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, that's a really valid point. Thank you. We might go to Cameron Ward.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. We need a seconder for that
vote.
motion. Thank you. And all those in favour? Thank you. Thanks, Jim. Cameron Ward, councillor Fieldmore.
Thank you, councillor Ferrari. In addition to the usual council meetings and briefings and getting down to Redbank and checking out the streetscape works and looking at the gallery precinct in Avoca, there are a couple of events, and I know that councillor Wardlaw will speak to these as well, I'm very sure, but there are 2 events that I attended that really stay to me to this day, and they're both They were both incredibly moving experiences. One was attending the Terry Floyd memorial service, and the other was seeing the Just a Farmer film, but with the community there in Avoca. And, you know, it can sound a bit cliched when you hear about the community being resilient and coming together and supporting each other, but I think we saw two real demonstrations of that. I mean, particularly for Darryl Floyd, you know, in remembrance of his young brother, Terry, who was abducted and whose body has never been found. It was an incredibly moving service and recognition that young Terry's memory lives on and his brother's passion and commitment to commemorate his young life. And also, I mean, in a different way, but recognising loss and grief. Just a Farmer really focused on farmer suicides and the ripple effect of those suicides. And it was really interesting. It was incredibly moving, but also interesting to speak with some of the community members at that event who, women in particular, women who would have been close to my age, maybe a bit older, and who were there with their husbands, husbands who I think were a bit older. And all of the women I spoke to said, of course, I'm here to support the community, but it's my husband. I want to listen to this message because it is so much about men needing to open up and recognise the stresses that they are under. So I thought it was really interesting that women raised that. But just, yeah, incredibly important events. It was great to see community members come out and support those and, yeah, to hopefully help us to continue to talk about, you know, child safety, keeping our loved ones close and safe, and also recognition of the stresses that farmers are under, and trying to get men in particular, but not exclusively, to just open up about how they're feeling. And there's a doctor on the panel at the end, is Dr. Michael, I can't remember his surname, but was encouraging those in the audience to just start practicing saying, I feel, you know, I feel sad, or I feel stressed, or I feel really encouraging people to open up. So yeah, important messages. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Fionn. That's really good. And that Just a Farmer is a great movie with a very strong and really relevant message. And you know, the drought and economic times, it's never been more important to monitor the mental health of our farmers. And the cumulative effect things are having on them too, not just, you know, sometimes the simplest thing can make a difference to someone when you've got that cumulative effect. So we all need to be very conscious of that. Thank you. Avoca Ward, Councillor Wardlaw.
Thank you. Like everyone else, been to lots of meetings, AGMs, audit and risk, those sorts of things. And I had on my list Terry Floyd Memorial, which Councillor Phelan has spoken very nicely about. And I was lucky to be a part of it, but I also felt more than that. It was a very, very somber and reflective afternoon, but I wouldn't call it sad. I just call it, you know, it was just an appreciation of what may have happened. And when at the second point, Darryl laid the wreath at the same time that Terry vanished, in the same place that he vanished from, you know, there was 100 of us standing there and you could have heard a pin drop, you know, and this was outside. It was actually just an incredible thing to be a part of. And then I was lucky to be the MC of Just a Farmer, and that was also just fantastic, coming together of people. And then the panel at the end where we got to ask some questions and that. And my big takeaway, the one thing that stood out to me the most was, like, you never actually know and appreciate what you mean to someone else. So, you know, you may think you're worthless or what have you, but someone else sees you in a totally different light. You know, you may think you failed, someone else sees you as an amazing ambassador, you know. So they're the things that I took from it. And I sort of don't have a lot more to say, but yeah, it's been a pretty good month in our ward and hopefully in everyone else's, and look forward to the next one.
Thank you. I might go through Mayor Keogh's activities in her absence, just to make sure she's heard tonight. So she's got a fair list here. So Save the Bush rally down at Bookar, that was really important. Council briefings, RCV meetings, the Pyrenees Art Exhibition opening night, which was fantastic. The Beaufort Primary School drink tap water fountain in consultation with or partnership with Central Highlands Water. Some briefings, a special council meeting, National General Assembly, Audit and Risk Committee, GBAC Committee meeting with Minister Stakos. So that's really important that mayors get to those meetings if they can and just be recognised, if nothing else. So it's really, really important if they can put a name to a face. Fat Farmers Feast, the Terry Floyd Memorial, Beaufort Rotary Changeover Lunch, citizenship ceremony, which was fantastic. I think it was six new citizens, which was absolutely fantastic, and the council briefing. So I can't elaborate on some of those other anymore because that's would have to come from the councillor, Keogh. And mine, similar things. I'd just like to highlight the Pyrenees Art Exhibition opening night. Just a fantastic night. They do such a great job and they have that all set up. They're absolutely beautiful. We're just so lucky to have some very talented people amongst us. They're just extremely talented and artistic, and you know, you see some of the works and it's mind-blowing. It's just fantastic. So we're very, very lucky, and congratulations to the organisers of that event and also for the Shire and the way that they've helped out as well. Also attended the Terry Floyd Memorial with all the councillors. It was I found it quite touching. In fact, I found it a little bit eerie. It was to the day 50 years previously. And as Councillor Wardlaw mentioned, when Darryl Floyd, Terry's brother, laid the wreath, it was at the exact time and the same location where Terry was last seen 50 years previously, and you could have heard a pin drop, and it was even the weather was a little bit eerie, but I just thought it was really fitting, and it's fantastic that he's recognised, and yeah, hopefully some things can go Darryl's way, because he's been funding a lot of this out of his own pocket, which I don't see as fair, but nonetheless, he's done a fantastic job. So, yeah, keep your chin up, Darryl. I had the pleasure of meeting him on that day too, so that was really fantastic. And I attended the citizenship ceremony, which we had 6 people become naturalised citizens of Australia, and they're all relatively local. Well, they are local, but I think one from Beaufort, a couple from Snake Valley, someone else. But anyway, it's really good there. It's fantastic. They love it, and they get their certificate, say a few words, and a native plant, and it's really, really good. So thank you to the council for organising that as well. So
Chantel did most.
Oh, thank you, Chantel, for organising that. You do a great job. Yeah. And you don't seek much recognition for it, but you do a fantastic job and you look after all of us councillors. So keep up the good work. That's the end of that. So that brings us to our confidential items. So moving on to that, the meeting will be closed to members of the public, and I ask that the gallery be exited, please. And can I have someone move that we move into closed council? Can I have a seconder? All those in favour? Thank you.